Oh my goodness. Welcome back to Colored Commentary. Colorful conversations by colorful people about Christianity, culture, and race. And you ain't heard it in a while, but I'm your host, Marcus Lloyd. And with me, as always, in the studio, Mr. Antwuan Malone. What's happening, Antwuan?
What's up? What's up, Marcus? What's up, everyone? Color Commentary fam.
That's right.
Thanks for clicking that button.
That's
and
right.
Listening in today for this conversation. I feel like we've it's been a little time.
It's been a little while. It's been a little like sabbatical hiatus.
Yeah.
Just trying to get some stuff together. Just personally.
Yeah. Life is life.
Life is life in the societally, the environment. It can take it out of you. And then just man, organizationally, we're threaded. I mean, there's just lots going on since the last time we got.
Yeah, I think we're probably. I wouldn't say recalibrating. Sound like we're changing everything, but it's not quite recalibrating everything. It's kind of like I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I was about to say some gun analogies.
Oh no, we don't need gun analogies.
It's kind of in our thing that we're gonna do today. But but I was saying you just cleaning the gun out. You just open it up and.
I really don't like that.
Doing something you don't like it at all. Yeah, we're not doing it. We'll just stick with recalibrating.
There we go.
And not try to be extra clever.
That's right. No cleverness to it. We just got stuff going on.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what happened to me yesterday, Antwuan?
What happened to you yesterday?
I watched my oldest son apply for 5 colleges.
Oh, that's right. It is that time, my friend.
It's that time, bro.
It is that time.
How did I get here?
Here you are.
This dude, and every time he was pushing the button, right before he would push a button, I see my credit card come up. That's what I was also looking at. I was really happy for him, but I just kept noticing my credit card number kept showing up right before he pushed the button.
I think that's the wrong name. It should be another name. Actually, that son is the same name.
Yeah, that's right. It has my name double. Now I'm like, hopefully he gets the bill and not me. Look, I want to give a shout out as if I can, because we started this process and we were going to try to do it ourselves, and it just created so much headache and strife in our family between mom and son and me and son, and we went ahead and just got this college counselor who could help with all of that.
Wow.
Fairly, I mean, not cheap, but not as expensive as what I was seeing when I would go to organizations and do it.
Yeah.
His name is Randy Trevino. I'm gonna go ahead and just give a shout out. I'm gonna just throw it out there.
Unsponsored shout out.
I'm giving it. If anybody's interested and wants
Randy
to know,
Trevino.
That's right. This dude was an admissions counselor at a place, and was fantastic. And I've already recommended him to several other people who are picking him up as well. Okay. So if you are out there, you got a senior or junior or a freshman or sophomore even, because I'm about to get my second child with him now. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because they get him ready. So he got him ready, and it was great. Got it applied the day that the app opens. So if you are in that strife with your teenager and you need some help, hit us up in the comments. We'll contact you, see if we can get you in touch, and see if maybe I can talk Randy into a sponsorship here. So now that I'm shooting his name out, but I was just so grateful. So that's so many. Yeah, that's
it's only right.
That's an exciting thing. Anything new in your world?
Anything in my world? Recalibrations all across the board.
Okay.
Well, this is probably news, but I'm gonna be a granddad.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. I know. Everybody's like,
but
that's
not
probably
just,
news.
Not
what do you mean? Why don't you just drop it in?
Yeah.
But not just a granddad of one, right? Of two. Like my daughter is pregnant with twins.
Yeah, buddy.
Right. And so she's due in about her technical due date is 8 weeks away, 7 or 8 weeks away. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like, how
do we get here?
How do we get here? Right? You're getting ready to graduate. I got. She's 25, and she but she's probably going to end up delivering. I mean, most of the time, twins are early, so it could be in the next 4 weeks. As of the day of recording this podcast.
That's right.
So everybody's trying to ask me what my name would be.
I did. I think I'm.
So here's I'm
you gonna give a couple of
options, right?
All right.
One is in my house growing up, I'm the no guy. Like my wife. My wife is yes, and I'm the no. I was the no guy.
Okay, I can't wait to hear this.
So in Italy, in Italian, my wife is Italian, and so in Italian, grandmother is nonna.
Okay.
Right, and grandfather is no.
Oh my gosh, no.
And so I love it. I'm like, I'm just gonna have my grandkids call me no. Just to prep their hearts.
I can't even.
Just to prep their hearts for no as a viable answer to their question. Like,
bro,
what's my name? Now just playing. No, so it's just kind of funny for me. I don't know if that's real or not. It's either that.
Bro, you got to do it now.
Oh no, it's either that. It's such a great. It fits so
it's
well, right?
So inappropriate at the same time.
It could do that, or it may be G-Paul. I'm playing around with G-Paul.
G-Paul.
Yeah. So we'll see.
I'm gonna call you no from now on. whether your grandkids do or not, as soon as they show up, we'll be like, "Hey, no."
That's my no.
Like, my gosh.
Yeah. Let me guess what you're gonna say. Yep.
Oh, that's
hilarious. The answer is
no.
So
it's a double no.
It's a double no. No.
It's not a dad no. It's a grandfather no.
It's a
so
grandfather.
You get two no's. You get
it's a grandfather no. No. Double
word.
no. It's the grand no.
Oh my word! I can't even do with you right now.
Oh my gosh! So I should never have heard that no was an option, because it's just funny for me. I'm actually probably going to say yes a lot more. Obviously,
yeah, I agree.
But it
no,
is it feels right. So anyway.
Oh my gosh! I think we should get like people putting in money to see if they can get you to do it. Like how much money do you need?
Honestly,
to take this name.
I'm gonna be called whatever they say, though.
I know. That's why you got to get ahead of it. You got to give. And no would be much easier to say. Now maybe they could do G-pop, but you got to get it in earlier. You're gonna end up with something really bad you don't like. So
that's my no. That's my G-pop.
Yeah,
I'm working on it.
Well, hey, look, I love it. Lots of stuff going on. Glad to be back behind the microphone and engaging the stuff that's going on. And we in Texas. So one of the things I know that we've been dealing with here in Texas is some work that's been happening around this gerrymandering. I can't even say it right. That's how crazy it is. And got to the point even in Texas where the House trying to vote on it, and Democrats left. They were like, look, we gonna leave the state. That way they can't come get us. That way we can stall the vote on really trying to gerrymander some of the districts here in Texas to potentially provide another few spots for Trump as we get for the Republicans, if you will, as we get to the 2026 midterms and the election that's coming. So I don't know. You heard much about that, Antwuan? Is that
yeah. Heard. Yes. I have heard about it.
Yeah. And I think what I've been interested in is kind of now the conversation around that particular exercise, because what I've seen is now I've seen, governors from different states that are probably a bit more blue states kind of saying, well, if they're going to do that in Texas, then the way we stop it is we need to do the same thing in our states, right? Gerrymander our districts so that more Democrats will win, right? And the mode underneath it is really interesting, right? Because I know particularly when you kind of think about the Democrats, right? One of the things I'd heard years ago, Michelle Obama, right, when things were kind of going down, I think first campaign by 45, right? So she would say, hey, when they go low, we go high. That was kind of the mantra. I think I even heard that when in this previous election, but I think I've been hearing the opposite from the Democrats these days, right? I think I heard Gavin Newsom, governor of California, saying California's moral high ground is nothing if we are powerless because of it. So this alternative, like the ends justify the means, right? They want to really start, all's fair and love and war, right? It's kind of this response to this. I think somebody in 47's camp said, partisan warfare everywhere all the time. So it seems to be an openness to in the political space of pushing back against, right? Fighting fire with fire. So I think the question is like, what do we do with that?
Yeah.
Like, first, how do we feel about it, and then what do we do with this? Like, what does this mean?
Yeah, it's a weird thing, because in the space that we live in as believers who want to follow what the scriptures call us to in general in life, whether it's politics, anywhere, it calls us to this space that, according to the world, it feels foolish, right? And it feels foolish because it calls us to live in such a way that would cause people to to think that we're living foolish. And it's because it feels like naive, and it feels soft. It feels like it's easy to be walked all over. And so when the rubber grips the road about moving things or making changes, the challenge often comes up to say, hey, does love truly win? Or do we have to really deploy these various types of hate or dissension tactics to progress, right? Yeah. And the world around us suggests that we should deploy these things. And so the temptation is always to say, hey, love didn't win, so maybe love is not the strategy, right? Maybe there's some other strategy that we should be deploying, and maybe that's just power, or maybe that's just advantage, or whatever it is, cheating. And I think that's where we are. I think the conversation has come up once again to be like, man, we don't feel like going high, as Michelle Obama has articulated it,
is working,
is a path that works. Yeah, it's not effective. And so we want to be effective for good reason. So there's lives at stake, there's people at stake. And right. for some people, their belief is that the democratic
the process is not working in the favor of,
or that democracy is at stake. And is what some people say. Whatever your reason is, it's not. You would probably say that it's a good reason.
Right, sure. Yeah. Everybody's a hero in their story.
Yeah. So they're saying, I'm not trying to do this for me. I'm trying to do this for the greater good. And I want the best thing. Is love, I'm saying, is love the way to get the best thing in our society? Or do we need to get into power position, as Governor Newsom tries to articulate? And then once we do whatever you can to get to the powerful seat, and then maybe once you're there, you can go back to your morals.
Yeah.
And that feels a little weird.
Yeah, it feels, I understand it. Like I think about it because, in some ways this speaks into the conversation that we're constantly having here around race. It makes me think of the dichotomy between Martin Luther King Jr., right. Malcolm X, right? It was, nonviolence versus by any means necessary. Right. And I know that there's the constant argument is like, at some point you got to stand up for yourself. You know what I mean? At some point you got to fight back, right? I know that it was Eric Holder, who's the former U.S. Attorney General, particularly under Barack Obama. I think I heard him talk about this idea of like, what if nobody had stood up to Hitler? You know what I mean? Like, what would we be looking at? And so you hear those ideas, and I don't know if that. Here's what I'm constantly wrestling with, right? I'm a Christian, right? So I'm always like, okay, so WWJD. Like what's Jesus talking about here?
I don't know who that was. It just came into our studio.
It's a button I pushed, and occasionally it'll just come in. Okay. If I push this button over here, it'll say WWJD. Right, that's it. It's just a drop that I got in here. So I'm thinking about it. All right, this idea of kind of engaging, if you will, the violence, if you will, of political tactics. Again, I hear Jamar talking right now, Jamar Tisby talking right now about guiding us back to King's principles of nonviolence, right? And as I'm thinking about that, I was like, yes, King's principles of nonviolence, dope, love them, good. But I also, like, for this show, I was like, man, but can we go further, right? Like, what are Jesus's, like, how does Jesus deal with this, right? Does he have anything to say in this political sphere? Does he have anything to say in what you were talking about of like, okay, it doesn't seem like the love part works? Is that Jesus saying like, oh, my love doesn't work everywhere, right? It only works in certain situations. Like, can Jesus's love work here? I don't know. I'm curious about that.
Yeah,
it's an interesting.
I mean, I've always had the view. So the effectiveness of the kingdom of God should expand across all those political spheres and social spheres, right? The problem is that the church does not have the in my opinion, or God's people tend to not have the right kind of influence on all those things. And so as a result, we ended up, we have historically created an environment for Hitlers and political giants to come in and even use our stuff to set up their things.
Okay.
So you mentioned Hitler. So
yeah.
You're like, man, there's the argument that World War II, the only way that we stopped Hitler was for us.
I love that you said we, like you were there.
We,
this is the collective.
Yeah,
It's
this is the collective
right. We celebrate.
The only way that we stopped Hitler was, man, we had to fight on it, drop some bombs. We had to, we had to employ a kind of violence. But I would say, but that's late though. Like the Nazi movement
didn't just start overnight.
Yeah, like it had the Christian. He was borrowing some quote unquote Christian ideas. Had the church appropriately influenced, to say it lightly, what's his name?
Adolf Hitler?
Yeah.
He's trying to forget it. I believe.
Getting older,
yeah. You're gonna be a pop
Hitler, I know.
G-pop or
no. Yeah. That's what's his name? No. So no, but had we appropriately done that, right, then Hitler doesn't even amass an army big enough that needs fighting.
Yeah.
Right. So to talk about this conversation is to go to, I think, the beginning is to say, hey, Hitler has to have an idea, and really in his context, the church comes around, or the Christian co-ops it and continues to help it go instead of contend against it.
Okay.
Right. And then after that, all of a sudden now we got to deal with a bunch of fight. Now, of course, there's a lot of other elements. It's not just the church, but it certainly wasn't the church speaking against him as much as it could be. Same thing in America. Right. The issue is always that God's people should have influence on a one-to-one, like on a individual basis as well as a corporate basis. And when that happens, you would hope that leaders, because they've engaged with Christian people, that their minds and their the way they would go about things would slightly shift. So I still think that you don't absolutely it's late after I would make the case the church has been ineffective in being the proper type of witness. Not just ineffective, but maybe even counter-effective.
Okay.
To the kind of witness that they should be. That typically we end up having our own problems. So you end up getting a Nebuchadnezzar, because because the Israelites have chosen the wrong thing and would not live the way God had called them to live. So now God's got to come in, and violence shows up late, potentially as a judgment, potentially as a consequence, to restore things that were unjust. But that's usually later down the road of dominoes. Does that make sense?
I think what I'm hearing from you is, if we were to put it in our context, that if we're at this point right now where there is this sort of upsurge in the idea that violence is the answer, there's a part that Christianity plays or has played in allowing it even to get here, by not necessarily standing up in places that we should have, taking stances that they should not have, that we shouldn't have, and now we are in the spot where it feels like the leadership is not respecting sort of the rules of the game, and the rules of the game were created believing that everybody would respect them.
Right.
And so now we've got somebody who has, I'll say in terms of Hitler, like Hitler was not respecting the rules. He was taking the things of the Bible, misrepresenting them, putting them into political spheres, and then drawing those people who were connected to those theologies into his movement to move things forward. Because again, in that particular time, they were in the majority as well. We have a similar situation here where we've got an authoritarian type leadership that's saying, hey, I'm gonna keep pushing these things. I'm not gonna play by the rules of how we set this thing up. And I'm going to then co-sign. I'm going to get Christianity to co-sign on the things that I'm doing as we move forward. And those who would label themselves as Christians see the co-sign and join in to the activities, when maybe there's times in which if they were following the mantra of Jesus and what he was asking for, they might actually make different decisions and maybe even stand up for what is right instead of standing up for what is politically helpful to them. Particularly as we think about partisanship, and that goes either way, right? It's not just about the Republicans in this moment. Like the Democrats have done the same thing. When we start talking about gerrymandering, like this is something that both parties have played a part in. It's really about the fear to some extent with this work of back and forth of gerrymandering, is that you ultimately take out the major aspect of society that is bringing things to the political sphere, which is kind of that middle space. Right, that's not fully sold on one political category, and putting in the hands of those who are on the extremes, right? Whether it be on the blue side or the red side. And so it's really making it's putting a damper on democracy as a whole, and putting it in the hands of whoever's in power to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, it's moving a society from one that is built on the honor system, which is what you just described,
right.
which is built on the belief that people will live and make choices from an integrity, honorable position, and therefore that leads to trust, to a distrusting environment where it's competition and, you know, I must conquer the person, or I must win. Because the person is I can't be right. So I do think in the America Constitution, or what the Constitution of America, I do think that capitalism and democracy are built on the honor system, on the belief that people are generally good people and they want to do the right thing for all, and therefore they would make the right choice in light of all of that decision making. As we grow increasingly individualistic, as we grow increasingly personal, not corporate, then now it's just like, how do I win?
Yeah.
And it's me against you, not me with you. And now that naturally creates distrust, and it naturally creates competition. And that means love is at it feels like a disadvantage in that environment, and power is at an advantage.
Right.
And so now we're like, okay, we've got to have power to love.
Yeah.
Right. Because love on its own isn't enough.
Isn't enough.
And that's the subject matter. And because the stakes are high, we're willing to put down things that we may have believed for a long time through the scriptures. Those of us who are believers who say, hey, turn the other cheek just isn't good enough. Maybe I'll go ahead and get the powerful seat, and then I'll start turning cheeks. Maybe I shouldn't say it quite like that.
Sorry.
It is.
I mean, there's something that's actually happening. I mean, they're turning cheeks and mooning each other.
Yeah, wait. I don't know about. Yeah, I don't know what cheeks you're talking about.
Yeah,
I was on.
I went to the cheeks that everybody else thought you were talking about.
The Matthew 5 cheeks.
Yeah, surely. Yeah. it could be that cheek too.
Okay.
I'm not sure. So you said something that's really interesting. You talked about this mode of sort of when we think about an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Some of the things that I think if we were to start to think about, okay, what are some tenets of kind of nonviolence? How would Jesus think about this? And you already started to allude to the fact that he'd be looking in this Sermon on the Mount area, right? You'd see things around loving your enemies. You'd see this, again, you mentioned turn the cheeks, that kind of thing. In the midst of that feels, I think, from a theological standpoint, I think part of the problem that we're running into is that theologically in the West, and particularly in the American construct, we tend to think and teach individualistic theology, right? We kind of heighten individualism in the midst of it. So now that we're at this space where we're thinking about what is best for us. You talked about like the honor system is built on the fact that people who would be a part of a society would be thinking not just about what's best for them, but what's best for the whole. What's best for the whole of society. And I think it's hard for people to, particularly if we're here kind of going, hey, Christians, where are you at? They're thinking, hey, I'm doing what Jesus, this thing that Jesus talks about doesn't have to do with society. It has to do with how I individually do things. So I can't even use Jesus's tenets because they apply to me individually. And I think that's just one of the problems that we've had in communicating the gospel and communicating the Bible to our Christian world, is that we have been looking at it through this cultural value of individualism. Where I think if you look at Jesus, right, like when he shows up, he's not coming to come for an individual, right? If he's coming for the world, but it talks about it in his mission when he comes in the time we know him from the Bible. So come from my people.
Yeah.
He's talking to a particular group of people who don't think of themselves as individuals, but they think of themselves as individuals that are a part of a larger group. In fact, they would think of themselves as a member of a group first, before they thought of themselves as individuals.
So them hearing those words from Jesus, they're applying it to they have a group application in mind, or at least their first thought is to say Jesus is talking to all of us.
That's right.
Not just all of us as a group of individuals, but all of us as a collective mindset.
Yeah, his you in his passage is not you individual, which is how we interpret it. It's y'all, right? And everybody listening knows that. So when he talks about turning the other cheek, he's not just talking to some individual in the crowd. He's saying y'all turn the other cheek. As a group, turn the other cheek. And we saw that even how they dealt with, Roman soldiers, where it's like, hey, if they come and make you carry their pack, that the way we are going to do it is we're going to carry it the extra mile, right? Like, and everybody felt it like that. And even as Jesus communicates the, what we call in the West, the Great Commission, right? That's how we label it, right? But this passage in Matthew, where he's ultimately saying, go make disciples of all nations. And then it continues on in Acts 1:8, where he says, and I want you to be my witnesses. This is not just individuals, it's for the collective. I want you to be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth, right? That wasn't an individual thing. It wasn't two individuals. It was really two pockets and groups, nations, people groups. The Samaritans were a people group. Right. So I feel like there's ways in which the tenets that Jesus gives us, right? These things like, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God, right? Love your enemies, right? I think those are tenets of nonviolence that should be able to be applied in a collective way, and even in our political collective climate.
Yeah. And you could make the case that they were originally meant to have that application as much as it had for the individual, right? Like that. And I think we have had a hard time trying to figure out how to use those tenets to combat injustices effectively in our modern politics. And so some people believe that, and again, that's kind of the thing we've been talking about is that, but I think that the scriptures are the scriptures, and we have to trust. So there's so many things here. So we have to trust Christ in what he's calling us to do. And we can't say, well, Jesus, this works for some scenarios and not for others. I think that's the challenge we have to face. That's what faith probably looks like, right? It's
easier in some situations.
It's going to be easier. It's just obedience in a way, if it makes sense. But faith and obedience is
even when it don't make sense.
It's when it doesn't make sense, right? Because that's where the unknown outcome, or even the outcome that isn't quite what you'd expect, but this thing that you're following is telling you to do it anyway. Well, that is the proof of your faith in that thing. You could make the case that this conversation about love or power really is a conversation about who can we really put our trust in, right? Is Jesus enough to put our collective trust in, or not? Now, that's easy for believers to say, Christians to say, but we are living in a world that does not govern itself that way.
See, that's the thing.
And so you have these two different things. And I think that's why Jesus comes in. It's like, well, my kingdom, when asked about truth and all that to Pilate, when he's sitting there facing the political thing, and he's like, what is truth? And are you a king?
Right.
And he's like, man, my kingdom is not of this world, because Jesus articulating that an ethic for living is going to be different from the kingdom than the current political context.
Right.
And so he makes a recognition of that while also challenging us to live into that kingdom ethic.
Yeah. It's the strange thing that you're saying, though, to me, right? Because what I would say is, at least in this particular story that we're dealing with about the gerrymandering in Texas, it's coming from the political group that would ultimately say they wear the Jesus t-shirt, right? They would be the ones who would be waving the Bibles, waving the Christian flags, and say that they are the Christian party, right? And so to see a group of people who would claim Christianity also be functioning to sort of claim power is a strange thing to see. And I think and look, I'll go back to what I just said about how Jesus engaged some of that, right? Like, even though I just mentioned Acts 1:8, where he talks about, go be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. If you go back just a couple of verses, you'll see that the disciples actually come to him, right? His people, what would be, we could call Christians. They weren't called that at that point, but these were followers of Jesus. This was the foundation on which Christianity was going to be made, was going to be on these disciples. And so they come to Jesus and they say to him, and they say, all right, we just saw you die. We saw you rise. Here you are. You've been walking around.
Now the time.
The power is now the time that we're going to make a nation for Israel. Right. And I think this was an extended conversation, because if you go back to the Great Commission, when he says, go and make disciples of all nations, what he's saying there is all ethnicities, all ethnic groups, basically saying, go make disciples of all non-Jews.
Right.
And I think they got sideways on that. They're like, wait a second, did he just say that? And then this is when they come to him and say, okay, we can do that as long as we are in power. So if you can tell us when we're supposed to set up our nation of Israel, when we get to be in charge, we get to set all the rules.
It's gonna be the easiest way to do it.
Now we can do this. So when are we doing this? And that's when Jesus is like, I didn't tell you to set up no king, no nation. I didn't say nothing about all that. Here's what I need you to do. I just need you to be my witnesses in every nation you go to, whether it be in the city of Jerusalem, if you're in Judea, if you're dealing with them Samaritans or anybody who's not like you, any place you go, your job is not to be nation builders, it's to be witnesses for me. And so that's what's really difficult, because that's the scriptures right there. And yet we're sitting here as Christians, and we know other folks who are Christians who would be like, nah, I think this we need to make sure we fix the game so that our dude stays in power, because that power will give us greater protection. They won't say that, but they may say that power will put us in a position to be able to rule in Jesus' ways, right? Where Jesus was like, I didn't tell you to rule anyway.
100%. I mean, this is the issue that Jeremiah was facing when he's talking. I know I brought him up earlier, but the reason they're in their position is because the kings of Israel at that time thought that the best way for them to protect themselves was to make political alliances with other nations. They made political decisions because it felt like the best or better thing to do. They were the smaller country. These countries have bigger things. They have bigger armies. They have stuff, and so we're gonna make these alliances. We're gonna be vassals with them, and then we're gonna make the deal. And of course, it's a deal. It's a handshake. So idolatry enters into the kingdom. Into Israel and into God's kingdom, and all of a sudden now you have a lot of this compromising, and now they've turned away from God. All that because the way that they thought they needed to succeed or to survive is based on their own thinking around political alliances and their dependence on those political alliances, and it's because it feels ultra practical. It even feels a little wise. You're like, man, why wouldn't I befriend the bully? I'll befriend the bully. We'll just make a deal, man. I'll do the thing with him, but we won't be the target. That way, if anybody come after us, we got the strongest man on the yard, right? And that makes some sense. Except now you're putting your trust in the bully, right? Not in God. And God is saying, no, I'm actually who you need to trust. And so it's got to be that, right? And that's where the rub is. I would make the case that it's the pre-work, right? It's the work that it takes to affect people before they get into power that actually can cause injustices to be righted at high levels, right? I think we just need the evidence of long-standing injustices or this comfort level with cheating from the party that would call themselves the God Party. And they may even say, hey, well, we're doing it. If we didn't do it, they would do it. That's irrelevant. That's eye for eye talk, right? That's not because
that's what they're saying. Hey, they did this before.
Yeah, they did it. So then we get to do it. No, that's eye for eye talk. That's what you would expect from a non-believer, because there's no other hope for them.
Right.
There's no other thing to put faith in but that type of energy. It's the ineffectiveness of our witness that creates the monster, right? And then all of a sudden we got to fight the monster,
right?
And so I think Jesus's model, while he didn't attack Rome, the politics of Rome, he challenged his people to love well, and that's what he did when he was here. And then there's a few other scenarios in the scriptures, I think, where God's people were under political distress, and it was never instructed for them to go and seize the powerful position. It was always to love well enough to affect the powerful. And First Peter would say that when they come and ask you why you're behaving the way you're behaving, be ready to give a defense, right? For your hope, not in the circumstances, but in God. And all that is witness talk. That's First Peter 2:3. Which is worth reading in the context of this conversation.
I can just hear like it feels.
Yeah.
If it doesn't feel good. Like it doesn't. It feels
it feels idealistic. It feels naive.
Yeah, absolutely.
It
feels cowardice. Like it feels
soft.
like something. Yeah. It in a country that elevates triumph, elevates this strength by power. Whatever your definition of power is determines how you might feel in this. Right. Because look, if you think back through all and I'm thinking about nonviolence, exemplars, right? You've got MLK, you've got Gandhi, you've got Leo Tolstoy in Russia, post apartheid Nelson Mandela. There's several people who, if you were to think back, like who are the proponents and exemplars of nonviolence. And at the end of the day, most of them, when you put all their kind of tenets together, you can see this in Jesus too, is that there is this point in which they are displaying that nonviolence and not reacting in the eye for an eye, I know appears and feels like cowardice and like you're letting people walk all over you. But the power it takes for someone to withstand that kind of abuse, withstand that kind of oppression, and still love and still desire the best for the person, desire the salvation for the person who's tormenting them, the person who's got sick and dogs on them. That is actually the symbol of greatest power, because it takes the most willpower and the most strength to be able to withstand that. It's easy to just smack somebody after they smacked you. That's easy. That's just instinctual. That's, as you say, that's just jungle behavior. Right. And you can keep acting like jungle animals if you want, but there's a reason why we were created in the human space. Like we have the ability to know how to show restraint, and that's where any of these cats, these exemplars, would say, hey, that's how we're supposed to do it, and that's where the power actually comes from.
Yeah.
And that's a hard deal.
Yeah. Not only is it not weakness, is powerful for the individual, but I think it's a more comprehensive way to solve a problem, right? Like I think if
hate cannot drive out hate, right? It's gonna keep
but the problem is it is a long haul.
Yeah.
And we've got to learn how to do it better and not succumb to the pressures of leaning to the efficacy of hate, right? Because hate does seem to be,
and it's efficient. It's
a far more efficient and effective way to get certain outcomes.
Right.
Right. I mean, you could make the case, man. You just go and you just, I'm a dad. If my son is bullied by someone, I could go and just beat up that kid.
I could just pound that kid. I'm gonna pound him into the ground.
I could.
And I'm not gonna say whether I've done that or not.
Oh yeah, don't. Okay,
I've not. I've not. Just to.
But we could do that, and on some level that might actually be effective.
Yeah,
like
short term.
He won't mess with my kids anymore. But the bully is still. He hadn't learned the right lesson as a result of that. He just learned that he wasn't powerful enough to beat this guy's dad.
Right.
He didn't learn to love my kid.
Right.
Right. Like
your kid didn't learn anything.
And right. So the lessons and the results and all that stuff, like while it looks like it worked a little bit, it works for the survival of my kid in the sense that he's going to feel less pain. And if that's what I wanted to solve, then fine.
Right.
But the bigger picture is something more than that, right? And it's more comprehensive than that. And that's something more transformative than that. And the work that God is doing through his people is a transformative type of an invitation to this transformation. That's a little bit more long term. And as a result, we are going to have these, it's going to be messier and longer. I think it's not as quote unquote effective,
right,
as just showing up and dropping a hammer on someone,
right,
or cheating, or engaging in these tactics that the scripture clearly repeatedly tells his people not to do, both in Old and New Testament, both individually and corporately, and even economically and financially. We just can't take the bait. The enemy is inviting us into his kingdom again. Right. When he does that, he's like, hey, you left our kingdom of lies and cheating and backbiting and competition. And you see over there, you're not getting very far, because we know what we're doing over here. If you want to get far, why don't you enter back into our kingdom and do things our way so you can move forward? We have to be able to resist that. And that even means that that we have to be willing to take some losses, I think, as a result of the process of that whole thing. And again, that's where I think Peter would write something similar.
Yeah, and it's hard because you want to talk about as losses, but it might be just the kind of thing that usually happens on the way to transformation.
Yeah.
Right. I think about it. My metaphor is I'm thinking about the gym, right? Like if you want to get those muscles, you got to go through some pain. Right. And a lot of people don't want to do that, so they don't go to the gym. But if you really want to build those muscles, you got to break down those muscles to be able to do that. I have a little cousin who's this prominent. He's this little track star. You know, he's like 10. You know what I mean? He's this little track star, whatever. And I was actually talking to his track coach. It's been a couple months now. And I was like, well, talk about like, how do you train these kids? He said, the biggest thing I got to do with these kids is, and really he goes, period, just with adults, anybody I'm training in track, I've got to teach them that when the muscles start to scream at you, that you've got to silence the screaming and push through, breathe through that pain, because on the other side of that pain is where you're building the confidence to run faster when other people are going to break down. Right? Like if you can actually learn to love that feeling when that pain starts, and you can teach your brain to go, aha, I've made it to a place. This is a spot that I know if I get here, I'm going to be moving faster than most of the other folks, or I'm going to be getting myself better, whatever that is. If you can like actually train your brain to believe that the pain is for your good, then now you've got an ability to take it to the next level. That's where these Olympians come from, right? They don't run from the pain. They know that when the pain comes, it means something good.
Yeah.
And so that's where we've got to get to, I think, just societally, for particularly as a Christians, is really thinking like the pain is going to come, but that pain has something good. It creates something good. And I think practically, I think if people are listening, like, this is great, like practically, like what do you do with all of that? Again, we don't have the answers fully, but we're wrestling with the question. But I keep thinking about this Matthew 5:9, where it talks about blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. I think when people hear that peacemakers, they think of it as a weak standpoint. They think about it as peacekeeping, right? Where you just kind of chill and let things happen. There is work that is peacemaking, right? That you're taking steps, right? You step into the conflict. But when you step into the conflict, you bring truth, you bring compassion, and you bring courage. And sometimes that courage is to not be drawn into the battle and take a little of the pain. And that pain is a long-term pain, right? It's a pain that's going to reap something better for you. But it is active.
Yeah.
It is active, whether we think it is or not. And it's just not quickly active. And we have to trust that Jesus knows what he's talking about. Yeah. And that's the faith component you mentioned. You got to have faith that Jesus knows what he's talking about.
I'll leave this with this maybe perspective and homework maybe for you if you're listening to this and struggling with it. When you imagine Peter, when you think about Peter, we've seen Peter throughout his life, and he's pretty much always like impetuous, like, or not impetuous, but like, you know, if anybody who's going to be an eye for an eye guy, Peter's the one that's going to be that guy, right?
He's feeling that.
He's showing up. He's bringing in the energy. He's got swords out. Lord, no, we got your back. Like, he is the guy. And it's toward the end of his life when he finally writes 1 Peter and 2 Peter. I've already made the reference to it. We hear a different Peter, because he's learned something new. Just transformation has showed up. So when you get to 1 Peter 3, I want you to read it when you get away from here, right? Read it in light of this conversation. Read it that it's Peter that's writing it, right? Peter, the guy who would probably more Malcolm X than Dr. King, right? He's the Malcolm X in the 12. Peter is writing what he's writing in chapter 3 that I want you to go in to read. We're not going to read it here. And I want you to know that his audience is people who are in a political context where they are disadvantaged and the leaders are corrupt, right? So we have an audience who they're asking, what does it look like to live as believers in a political context where we have very little to no power, and there is injustice around us? Peter writes, who's Mr. Malcolm X, like, and he is at the end of his life providing wisdom to that space. And then we get to 1 Peter 3, and then you read it. And what you're going to see is that Peter is calling them to kingdom work, right? And this conversation that we're having right now It really starts in 2 and 3, right? But this conversation we're starting right now is like, man, what do we do with the government? Like, what do we do with that? He begins to speak to that, and then he begins to tell us, what does this behavior look like, and how does that actually change the way life is? Now, I'll say this last little bit. I also realized that wasn't a democracy. Democracy is not represented as a context in the scriptures. So they didn't have a chance to vote and all that type of stuff. But I would make the case that even if they did have a chance to vote, I don't know that it would change the letter as far as what it is we do all that much.
And the mindset we have to
mindset that we got to be in, and the tactics that we need to ultimately deploy. They can vote what they vote, but at the end of the day, they've got to live a certain way. And in a democracy, living a certain way should change the hearts of people around us.
Yeah.
That changes the overall vote, right?
Yeah.
The more people the church can truly affect in a country, then the votes start to follow the believing way. It really does start with the witness more than the power. And so anyway, 1 Peter 3, that's your homework. Go check 2 and 3 really, but if you want the shorter, just 3 and go check it out.
That's good. I loved how you into that kind of this recognition of what I would say is the blessing of democracy with Christians in the midst of it. It reminds me of what I always heard Alexia Salvatierra say when she articulates the idea of Jesus saying to the disciples, "You will do greater things than me."
Mm-hmm.
She connects that to that. It's like, look, Jesus did not even have the options that we have in this democracy to make change, and we have them. We get to use his message in ways that are what's the word? Infectious. And if we demonstrate something that we all generally know to be good, then it will become infectious and others will follow with that. So we have a possibility to do things that Jesus might not have couldn't do in his time just because of the freedoms we have. So I love it. And last, I think the other thing I'm going to take away from what you just said is that Peter is Malcolm X. I think that's all I heard in there. So man,
he is closest to it.
Look, you said what you said. Okay. Like we got it recorded.
It's recorded.
Yeah, it's in. So hey, this is great. Good convo. I'm glad to be able to kind of engage that a little bit and engage with you as always, Antwuan, and our audience. We are excited about this, and man, we're glad to be back in Color Commentary. If you're new to Color Commentary, we invite you to go back and listen to some of our shows, and you'll hear very similar things going on in the shows as we go forward. But you might start to hear a little bit of changes in content and things that we may bring, just some additional things to add to this work that we're in the midst of. Of course, this conversation is powered by Threaded, which is an organization, a biblically based racial reconciliation, unity, and justice organization. We do a lot of work in the Dallas area, also up in the Cleveland area as well. So if you're around there and you want to get your church engaged into, what does it look like to engage the growing diversity of the community that you're in? That's just kind of who people call. When people call us, they want to know how they can get their church engaged in that and in the community. So that's a great place. So if you're looking for that, check us out. wearethreaded.org. Get in touch with us and we can come alongside you and your church as you try to get more invested in your community. Otherwise, keep throwing people over to the podcast. Color Commentary, colorful conversations by colorful people about Christianity, culture, and race. We're going to deal with all those things. Got to deal with a little bit of culture, a little bit of race today. So we'll continue that road. And that when you are with us, part of the reason we say what we do is because we want you to put on different lenses so that you can see the world not just in one color, but in multiple colors. And so with that, that's why we end every show by telling you to stay colored.